There is no unity with people who scream at children over their parents' politics. There is no unity with someone who lies about what Charlie Kirk said in order to excuse his murder. There is no unity with someone who harasses an innocent family the day after the father of that family lost a dear friend.
There is a political battle raging here in America between the radical left and the radical right. And everybody's pointing their fingers, and people are being shot, unalive. There's all kinds of things happening, right? And we're being bamboozled and led astray. Now, they're talking about this Charlie Kirk situation because he was the latest person to be unalive. Now, he wasn't a political person. He was like a podcaster or running Turning Point USA, where he was funded by the political pundits to actually run these programs, right? Now, he would say some very disrespectful things about a lot of different groups, from the LGBTQ community, blacks, the Arabs over there. And, you know, he had an he was very devout support for Israel. He had a whole bunch of different things. So people loved him. Some people didn't like him at all, right? Now, in America, we're supposed to have free speech. We're supposed to be able to say the things that we want to say, right? Without there being pushback, without there being a whole bunch of just, problems. But there's a situation going on since the Biden administration where free speech has been under attack. And a lot of people felt like the Democrats, under their policies, was taking away free speech. People didn't have a right to voice their opinion based off of policies that was being pushed by the Democrats. And when the Republicans got in, they vowed to change that. But now we're seeing a push for the Republicans to push their narrative. And if you're going against their narrative, then it's called hate speech, right? So that's how they can shut you up, by saying this is hate speech and we can shut you down, right? So now there's an argument going back and forth to the point where you have your Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, talking like this.
Our own government encouraged private companies to silence people who dared to utter what turned out to be an obvious truth. So I come here today not just with an observation, but with an offer. And just as the Biden administration seemed desperate to silence people for speaking their minds, so the Trump administration will do precisely the opposite, and I hope that we can work together on that. In Washington, there is a new sheriff in town, and under Donald Trump's leadership, we may disagree with your views, but we will fight to defend your right to offer it in the public square, agree or disagree.
Well, see, that's your vice president making comments that they were going to come and change, and they was going to bring back freedom of speech, whether you like it or not. Whether things are being said to your disliking, you have an amendment right to be able to speak your mind, right? As long as it's not hurting anybody, right? You have a right to speak your mind. It can hurt some feelings, but this is America, right? But then when Charlie Kirk goes off and says the things that he says, right, and then Charlie Kirk is ultimately unalive, and he shouldn't have been unalive for his comments. We should debate him. Come debate people that's intellectually sound that can actually defeat him, right? Don't just send him to college campuses where he's debating kids that don't have enough life experiences. Bring them to the intellectuals, and let's see how smart he is, right? They never did that. But this is the thing. Now that the shoe's on the other foot, look at the way J.D. Vance is responding. Look at what he's saying. This is coming from your vice president.
There is no unity with people who scream at children over their parents' politics. There is no unity with someone who lies about what Charlie Kirk said in order to excuse his murder. There is no unity with someone who harasses an innocent family the day after the father of that family lost a dear friend. There is no unity with the people who celebrate Charlie Kirk's assassination. And there is no unity with the people who fund these articles, who pay the salaries of these terrorist sympathizers, who argue that Charlie Kirk, a loving husband and father, deserved a shot to the neck because he spoke words with which they disagreed.
Now, he's saying that they're not going to unify with these type of people. But we gotta go back and look at the things that Charlie Kirk actually said about my community and my people. And we view this as hate speech. We view this as a civil rights violation, right? Now, this is the thing. Whether he has free speech, had I had the chance to debate him, I would have debunked all of that stuff. I would have debunked this disparate impact and why he wanted the civil rights that taken out of the Civil Rights Bill. I would have debunked a white man is more likely to be unalived by a black man. We would have debunked all of those different things. We know that, but he didn't come to debate us, right? But let's look at the undeniable facts and the disrespect that he had towards black women, right? And even he said, I wasn't saying all black women, I'm talking about those black women. First of all, these are very well accomplished, intelligent black women. I may not agree with all their thought process and policies because I don't. But one thing I would not say is challenge their intelligence as people, right? Because I already know in America how what they've done to us and said how they try to say that we wasn't smart enough. Listen to what Charlie Kirk has said and what J.D. Vance is trying to defend.
You had to go steal a white person's slot to go be taken somewhat seriously. No, this is how arrogant Joy Reid and Ketanji Brown Jackson and Michelle Obama and Sheila Jackson Lee are. They're so narcissistic, they think this is persuasive. You do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously.
But if you go and watch the clip, the very clip she links to, you realize he never said anything like that. He never uttered those words.
You do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously.
The video where the words and the clips speak for themselves.
The writer accuses Charlie of saying, and I quote, "Black women do not have brain processing power to be taken seriously." But if you go and watch the clip, the very clip she links to, you realize he never said anything like that.
You do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously.
He never uttered those words. He made an argument against affirmative action as a policy. He criticized a specific Supreme Court justice as an individual. He never said anything about black women as a group. He made an argument.
You had to go steal a white person's slot to go be taken somewhat seriously.
That he never uttered those words.
You do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously.
But if you go and watch the clip, the very clip she links to, you realize he never said anything like that. He never uttered those words.
You do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously. You had to go steal a white person's slot to go be taken somewhat seriously.
He made an argument against affirmative action as a policy. He criticized a specific Supreme Court justice as an individual. He never said anything about black women as a group. He made an argument.
Simone Biles says, this Olympic Games, I wanted to be for myself when I came in, and I felt like I was still doing it for other people, as she cried after the team event on Tuesday. So that just, it like hurts my heart because doing what I love has been kind of taken away from me to please other people. Yeah, that's the point, Simone Biles. You're representing your nation, you selfish sociopath.
No, this is how arrogant Joy Reid and Ketanji Brown Jackson and Michelle Obama and Sheila Jackson Lee are. They're so narcissistic, they think this is persuasive. We know. It's very obvious to us that you were not smart enough to be able to get in on your own. I couldn't make it on my own, so I needed to take opportunities from someone more deserving. You know, this is how arrogant Joy Reid and Ketanji Brown Jackson and Michelle Obama and Sheila Jackson Lee are. They're so narcissistic, they think this is persuasive. They think we're like, oh, of course, that's why we need affirmative action, because you have impressed us with your brilliance. Of course.
This hack of a writer shows that she lied about a dead man, and yet she wrote it.
So now, after Charlie Kirk was unalived, and everybody all over the world is talking about it, even BB, right? Everybody's voicing their opinions. You have senators and congressmen, the president of the United States, and everybody's pointing their fingers and trying to figure out, like, who did this? They have Tyler Robinson, right? And we know that he's a groiper. He has alleged connections to the groipers. I'm not going to say that he's just a groiper. He has connections to the groiper that was headed by Nick Fuentes, right? So we want to make sure we put things in context and make sure that it's right. Because, like I said, I don't have an angle. Well, you know what? No, I do. My angle is I don't like the disparaging things that Charlie Kirk said about my community, right? And you can say, well, he didn't say it this way. This is the way I'm taking it. And I'm not taking it out of context because I watched the whole videos and I comprehended and understood what he was saying. So my angle is the disrespect from Charlie Kirk, right? I feel like Charlie Kirk was spewing hate speech on my community, right? And I have my right to say that. Do I believe that he should have been unalive for it? Absolutely not. No, I'm not a savage. No, I don't think that things should be handled in that way. Absolutely not. right? And based off of what Charlie Kirk teaches, I wouldn't have been intelligent enough to carry it out anyway, based off of what he talks about, me being a DEI hire, right? But let's look at Nick Fuentes, because President Trump was asked how did he feel, about the situation with Charlie Kirk when outside the White House, and he started talking about them building another wing to the White House, a ballroom, and was getting into a whole bunch of other stuff that had nothing to do with the unaliving of Charlie Kirk. So Nick Fuentes, who was a staunch Trump supporter, called him out on this, and he said this.
I was genuinely disturbed by Trump's reaction to Charlie Kirk's death. Isn't this your friend? They asked him about it the day after, and he said, yeah, anyway, so we're building the new East Wing. Are you serious? You got shot. This is your 31-year-old friend who supported you for years. You know him by name. Your son is friends with him. It doesn't seem like he could be bothered. He didn't go to the memorial. He's golfing. He's dancing at a sports outing. Shame on all of the Trump shills for not calling this out.
So Nick Fuentes, the whole ship is leaking oil. And everybody's calling each other out. And everybody's pointing each other. And the whole thing is falling down. Now, we have the other side, where now the left is defending themselves against the right, because the right have been firing pow-pows at the radical left and blaming them for everything and saying statistically all of this trouble is falling from the left side, right? So now the left is now pow-powing back. Right now, y'all remember when Melissa Hortman Melissa Hortman and her husband was unalive. What's the guy named Bolter, Vance Bolter, right? And then Yvette Hoffman, she was pow 9 times and she survived. And these were guys connected to Trump supporters allegedly, and he was a radical right. So there's been some real bad stuff going back and forth, political gang violence, going back and forth between these two parties for some time now behind the scenes. And there was a guy that was on Cuomo show, and he talked about this, and he broke down to statistically the battle between the right and the left, and the unalivings and assaults, aggravated assaults, and all these different things that's going on. And he's saying that this has come from mainly the radical right that's been doing this. So they both using the media to demonize each other, to social engineer the people to be against each other and pile on. And nobody's peeping this. Nobody's peeping what's really going on. Let's listen to what this man said.
How would you analyze what you're hearing in response to this murder from the left?
From the left? I mean, just listening to the clips you played from the Trump administration, we're in a very dark moment. It's a very McCarthyite moment right now. I've been listening to your show. You made a lot of good points. The biggest point I think you've glossed over is the crackdown on free speech, this targeting of people for their views. I thought Charlie Kirk was supposed to be a free speech martyr. Why are the right using his death to crack down on free speech and American rights and go after this amorphous left? J.D. Vance lied today on the Charlie Kirk show when he said the statistics are clear that this is a left-wing problem. It's the exact reverse. Right, exact reverse. You look at the ADL Center for Extremism, which looked at 444 people killed by extremists between 2013 and 2022, 75% of them by the right. You look at the University of Maryland study that was done for their terrorism center, which found that from 1948 to 2018, right-wing extremists more likely to carry out violence than left-wing extremists. You look at the head of the FBI, who Donald Trump appointed, Chris Wray, who said the #1 domestic terror threat in this country comes from religious and racially motivated extremists, specifically white supremacists. You can keep going. The National Institute for Justice found that the majority of incidents since 1990, violent terroristic acts, were right-wing extremists. The single biggest day of political violence, Chris, in our lifetimes in this country was January 6th, 2021, when right-wing extremists attacked the Capitol, injured police officers. They were ideologically motivated. You and I agreed it was an insurrection at the time. So it's bizarre for Vance to go on TV or go online and say the exact opposite of what both the official statistics say and the think tanks say. All of our evidence tells us. I mean, there was a Democratic lawmaker, Chris, I don't know how many times we have to say this, who was murdered in her home with her husband in June by a Trump supporter. And Donald Trump today said, who? When he was asked about it, he said, who?
So, Mehdi, one quick thing. I do not think January 6th was an insurrection. I thought that it was all kinds of crimes.
You said it at the time, Chris.
I just don't.
You called it an insurrection at the time. You did. You did.
No,
I checked your Twitter before I came on air.
Thought.
Okay,
Go ahead, show it to me.
Check it afterwards.
I never thought that they were trying to take over the government. That's what an insurrection is. But it doesn't matter. It was bad. But we're dealing with new bad stuff. But
it was political violence. We can agree, right, Chris? It was political violence.
100%.
So he's exposing them with statistics based off of what the statistics say about the radical right and the radical left. And they are just going back and forth for the battle. Who's going to control the media and the minds of the people to allow them to push their agenda? Which way can we sway the minds? Will they have a radical right way of thinking or a radical left way of thinking? And at the end of the day, we both was in the middle complaining about both parties. Some policies we agree with, some policies are diametrically opposed to, and we disagree with it, right? But now they're downloading a bunch of trauma, right, to you and making you choose sides. And they know that racism is the mental fabric of America. And if we can get you to start racially fighting and going into your racial corners, we got you. We got you. And we can push these narratives. So there was another brother that spoke from the left calling out the radical right. And he said this.
To the Vice President of the United States that said,
It is a statistical fact that most of the lunatics in American politics today are proud members of the far left.
you're an idiot and I'm going to debunk you. Even though we know 62% of political violence comes from right-wingers, let's talk specifics. Remember the registered Republican that shot Melissa Hortman, her husband, and her dog Gilbert just for being a Democrat? Remember when the Trump supporter tried to assassinate Governor Josh Shapiro and his family by burning down his home because he was a Democrat? Remember when the right-wingers tried to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer because she was a Democrat? Remember when that right-winger broke into Nancy Pelosi's home and beat up her husband because they were Democrats? How did Donnie C now react to that? Now I know where your mind's going, and before you say that's just politicians, I know you don't want to talk about the right-winger that hunted down people in El Paso because of the replacement theory garbage that you spew, or the nightclub that a right-winger shot up, or the church a right-winger shot up because they wanted to incite a race war, or the neighborhood patrols that your little friends go on that nobody's afraid of. If I were to keep going, this video would be 10 minutes long. You know why? Because the right wing is a violent ideology, and never let a group of people that literally tried to overthrow the United States government tell you otherwise. Sit this one out, JD.
So whether it was Biden and Kamala Harris and their policies, there were certain things I agreed with. There were certain things I vehemently disagreed with. As a foundational Black American, I vehemently disagreed, right? When it comes to the Republicans, right? There was a lot of things that I disagreed with in regards to them, because what they're doing now is what I knew that they were going to do. Now, when it comes to immigration policies, I agree. But as a foundational Black Americans, neither party was for reparations for my people, right? Neither party was for the economic development to restore what you did to my community. Neither party. You had the Democrats bringing flushing our communities with immigrants and providing resources and economics for them. You have this president that wants to bring in the National Guard into communities, but not actually allocate funds to help redevelop those communities that's been destabilized by the U.S. government, right? So no, both parties have been a colossal failure for foundational Black Americans. So then when you get Charlie Kirk comes out here and he says these disparaging things about my people and my community, of course I take umbrage with that. Of course I have a problem with that. I have every right to have a problem with that. And I feel like the things that Charlie Kirk said about my community was a direct civil rights violation to my community. Because in this country, my skin has always been my sin, and the preconceived notion about me and my people based off the way the media has given the presentation to the world has been disgusting. And why you had to have certain provisions in these civil rights bills in the first place, and why you had to have affirmative action signed by JFK in 1961 in the first place. So when you have a president that come in that want to roll everything back to the states and take the power away from the federal government, knowing that the federal government had provisions to protect the Black community, which they never enforced, that's the problem. So for me, both parties have been a colossal failure. So as I sit with my binoculars on top of the hill and watch the radical right and the radical left fight against each other, I'm telling Black people, pay attention. Pay attention, because it's funny how we know that the power The guy that pow Charlie Kirk in the situation was a W, man. But for some reason, we're being attacked. For some reason, we're at the forefront of the blame. Our communities is being talked about. And this is the things that go on. Both parties have been a colossal failure. There's certain things that we're going to agree with. There's certain things that we're going to disagree with, right? But they're having a political, this is political violence. Political violence. The radical right versus the radical left. The same way they want to insinuate Crips and Bloods in LA and Chicago, gang violence. And well, you have the radical left and the radical right. And what we see now is based off of what they're saying, people are being pow and unalived. And they're blaming each other. So what do we call that? Huh? What do we call that? And it's funny how they try to conveniently just overlook those things and try to shut you down with hate speech and call it hate speech. But you guys got to let me know what you think about this. If you made it this far in the video, hit that like button, subscribe to Street Media TV, leave your comments in the comments section. And remember, I love y'all. Till the next time, peace.